welcome you on into another episode of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. It's Mitch Spinell alongside Mitchell Balla here to give you the latest of what's going on in the sporting world. Mitch, it's good to have you back this week.
2 weeks, I feel like we haven't been in person.
2 weeks
like
have been in person, and then we kind of had a lull period where you were able to make it in the start of the week, but we were able to do it here now at the end of the week. We are now getting into a number of topics here as we head into the weekend, and I'm ready to go.
I am too. There's a lot of talk about both high school football, college football, professional football, of course our Cleveland Browns, baseball, even though the Guardians aren't in the playoffs. Cavs Media Day this week. Yes. We have a lot to talk about. You were there, so we'll be able to get some nice inside info. Yeah,
so we'll go into that, and of course, you can check out our website, BigTimeSportsOhio.com, for all of our latest info, videos, schedule. We got a couple of things changing here and there, but be sure to check that out and all of our socials because we have a number of things to get to here. Before we get into the high school stuff, I do want to shout out a couple of teams that are also performing well now that we're in the postseason for those respective sports. I mean, with the football season still in the regular season slate, there are a number of teams to get to. Obviously, we have on the golf side. I have a couple of standouts from my area. We saw the Garaway girls golf team make its third straight trip to state as well. The boys are also performing very well so far. They just finished second in the districts, and a number of things going on there for Coach Michele Johnson's squad. And then on the Stark side, Hoover, Jackson Lake, and Greens girls all earned district berths this past week, so shout out to them. You also have a number of players from Canton South making it to the district tennis tournament. The NAT champion Wildcats have junior Marissa Zaleski in singles, and then the senior doubles duo of Emily Thompson and Rowan Laughlin winning their sectional matches this week to move on. So congratulations to them. And we have a number of other ones in here that we'll get to, I'm sure, later on in the show. But it is now time to go over our matchups for this week because we have McKinley versus Jackson on the Stark side on Big Time Sports this week, Mitch. I mean, it is, you said it was senior night for Jackson?
Yes, it is. It's Jackson's last home game of the year. Next two games are on the road at Central next week for their off week in Fed play, and then they go to Hoover for rivalry week. This is a monumental game for Jackson. If they have any chance at all of trying to get back into the Federal League race, it's going to take a win over McKinley, which is never easy. McKinley recently, Mitch, not in terms of just lopsided scores, just has had Jackson's number. McKinley last week with a very, very impressive 29-22 win over Lake. Lake with that late score with about a minute remaining in that game. So that game last week was kind of getting ready to set up for the winner to be in control of their own destiny, which is now McKinley. Jackson, though, would have to win this week. Obviously, then win again week 10 against Hoover and hope McKinley may slide somewhere else because Jackson now has suffered two consecutive Federal League losses over the past 2 weeks against Lake and then last week to Glen Oak at Glen Oak. So Polar Bears are going to have their hands full. It's senior night, though, and with what I've seen from Jackson in most games this year, they're going to come ready to play. Can they slow down the McKinley offense? Can they stop Nino Hill? Can they stop Keaton Road and limit the passing game? We know he is prone to turnovers. This Jackson defense, led by, look at Anthony Feuline, has 3 pick sixes this season. Will Keaton Road even try to challenge him? I think a lot of teams are starting to go to the other side of the field where Feuline is, or is not, rather. We'll see. I'm really intrigued to see how this shapes up because Jackson has a lot of athletes, right? McKinley, we know, has all these athletes all over the field, both offensively and defensively. Can Jackson match up there? Can the passing game get going to where it was in the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season? Or is McKinley going to clinch the Federal League this week? That's something we're going to have to wait and see. Or realistically, clinch at least a share. Lake would have to win the last 2. McKinley, with a win, clinches a share. 2 more wins will clinch it outright. So, Big Time Sports game of the week, though. So we will be there. I'll be there on the sidelines. I'm excited. This should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And you go into a couple other Stark matchups alongside our match between the Polar Bears and the Bulldogs. Kind of taking me through some of these ones here as well. I mean, North Canton Hoover is going to be competing alongside this week. They'll have a couple of matchups. They'll have a matchup here. Lake, as you mentioned, had that loss against McKinley earlier in the season, or last week, and that was their first league loss. So they're going to be coming back this week. And I mean, Green's going to be in there as well. We mentioned Canton South is going to be competing against Fairless right before we started the show, and they're going to be having potentially their starting quarterback in Poochie Snyder return after he had to leave last week's game with an apparent arm injury.
Yeah, it looked like whether he hit his hand on something on a throw, he left the game, and they had a freshman quarterback step up in a crucial moment to deliver the game-winning touchdown pass for Canton South to survive, stay undefeated. But that's going to be a good one. I'm sure Fairless, obviously being prepared for either Poochie or, anybody else from Canton South, they're going to have their hands full regardless. For Canton South, though, this is huge. Just to get your starting quarterback back, one of the best players in Stark County, now the all-time career leading passing leader in Stark County history. We'll have to wait and see. He was still chasing both that and career touchdown passes as a quarterback, so we'll have to see if he's able to still get on that down the stretch here with 3 weeks to go. But that'll be a good one, Mitch. I think Hoover at Lake has the ability to be a really good one. Hoover with that impressive win last week against Perry in overtime on Big Time Sports. That was our game last week. That was an entertaining game. Lake trying to get back to their winning ways after a loss last week to McKinley, like you mentioned. That was their first loss since week 1 to Alliance, that 12-7 game, I believe. So the other one, though, that I'm really fascinated in, Massillon at Fitch.
Yes.
Massillon is not a team that goes on the road a whole lot. We know that. They're not just going on the road this week. They're going to a tough place. Fitch is a very good football team this year. How does the number 1 team in Division II, as ranked by the polls right now that we were talking about before we started to record, how do they respond going on the road this week? We know DeJuan Owens is now back. That is something we can now talk about. He returned last week after being held out for a week due to an investigation with transferring and everything. So it looks like everything's good there for Massillon, which that's a big plus because it's DeJuan Owens, and we've talked about how incredible he is as a quarterback this year for Massillon. So I'm really intrigued to see how Massillon does on the road. I mean, this is not going to be an easy place to play. Do the Tigers continue to flex their muscles, or does Fitch able to steal one here and defend their home turf? This is a very, very interesting matchup.
Time is going to tell, and you have those matchups in Stark, so you can check those out. As I mentioned, we'll have the Polar Bears and the Bulldogs here on Big Time Sports later on tomorrow night. As far as the IVC goes, in my area, I mean, we have a number of games here. We also have a couple of matchups between the other area teams in Tuscarawas County. The Dover Crimson Tornadoes. You want to talk about a resilient bunch. They just went down to Columbus this past Friday night, and they were able to avenge 2 losses from last year. They were able to beat St. Francis de Sales by a considerable margin to avenge, as I mentioned, the 2 losses from this past year. They beat St. Francis 38-7 to boost their record up to 3-4. So it's not going to be easy for Coach Daniel's squad to have any chance at a postseason spot because of that record right now. But they play Boardman this week. Boardman's 1-6. They're probably going to win that game. And then, of course, you have Lindsley the following week before you get to the rivalry game against New Philadelphia. Now, as for the Quakers right now, they're 5-2, coming off a very strange win against Madison Comprehensive, a team that has not won a game yet this season. Even as we speak, they won 21-10, and the Quakers' offense has kind of struggled at times this year, even though they put up some big numbers. You saw it the week before when they were able to get a pretty convincing victory against Mount Vernon. But the Quakers will go on the road again this week. They'll play Lexington, a 3-4 team. So it's not a guaranteed victory for New Philly, but they've been able to do some good things this year. Keaton Fossil has obviously grown into his own as a starting quarterback, third-year quarterback starter for the Quakers. I mean, Edney Richardson is a great senior back for New Philly, and they've been able to do a lot of good things in moving the ball on the ground, and that defense under Coach Mike Johnson is still very solid. As far as the rest of the IVC goes, two of the big matchups here are going to be Claymont against Sandy Valley, and then Tusky Valley against Garaway. I mean, the Mustangs have had a bit of a struggle this year in that loaded IVC South, and Sandy Valley, we saw them have a loss against Indian Valley 2 weeks ago, in which it kind of brought the Cardinals back down to earth following their unbelievable performance against Malvern in the prior week. And as far as the Cardinals went last week, they ended up losing to Ridgewood 35-21. So it's back-to-back losses for the Cardinals now. The Mustangs just beat Tusky Valley 34-21, and Tusky Valley has been a very surprise team in the IVC South this year, a good team. But Tusky Valley lost that game, and they'll go on to face Garaway this week. And the Garaway Pirates, in Sugar Creek. It's going to be a tough game for them, especially with Garaway coming off of a victory over Indian Valley this past Friday in Janaden to bump their record up. Still remaining unbeaten, still remaining one of the top teams in the league, and still primed for potentially a long run in the upcoming playoffs, which, Garaway is one of those teams that has been a very deep representative in the IVC for the IVC in the playoffs over the last couple of seasons. IVC matches also include Strasburg versus Buckeye Trail, Tuscarora Central Catholic versus East Canton, and Malvern going up against Newcomerstown. Strasburg just beat East Canton, by the way. I just want to mention that for no reason. But yeah, so we've got those games in the bag. We got those games coming up here for you guys. Be sure to check out our website for more information on that. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have there. Hey, Stark County, it's your friends from the local Board of Mental Health and Addiction Recovery, and we have a challenge for you. We're asking you to create a new habit and check in on someone every day. Nothing fancy, just a simple text, phone call, or note on social media to ask someone how they're doing. You don't have to be a professional, you just have to ask and then listen. Are you someone who could use a check-in? Text 4HOPE to 741-741 anytime, day or night, or dial 988. Brought to you by Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level up. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
Think Ferris. Where you matter.
You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. Alt Care.
Alt Care, Alt Care. Where you matter.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partnered with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
Happy Sardiversary with Sarda rider Anthony. We're celebrating 25 years with our valued riders.
And I absolutely enjoy riding the buses. I get to know a few of the drivers, very respectful, very professional. Just an all-around about good experience. It helps people get to where they're going. Disabled, veterans, or people going to work.
Thanks to all our riders as we celebrate Sarda 25 at Sarda.
I want to go to the professional side. I want to go back to something that you said on the show last week, I think, where you said that the Browns could still lose the bye week. And I said that was insane because technically you're not, because I made the prediction that you're not going to lose during the bye week, and you said they could possibly still have a chance to lose. And I was like, wait, what are you saying? And I know you were joking at the time, but in jest. But the way some people have reacted over the last couple of days, you would think we had taken not only the loss to Baltimore going into the bye, we've taken 2 losses piled on top of it. Because this whole thing that we didn't get to regarding the Browns losing to the Ravens on Sunday and Deshaun Watson not playing, Dorian Thompson-Robinson looking like the 5th-round pick. This whole thing where Watson had not practiced all throughout the whole week, had barely thrown the ball, but the thought was he's still going to go, he's still going to go, still going to go. And then the conflicting reports that came with that. Then you see late on Sunday, he decided not to play. And it seemed like it was the right decision because the guy just wasn't able to get the ball very far down the field. And I think Kevin Stefanski had it in his mind from 2 years ago with Baker Mayfield playing with a hurt shoulder that it kind of limited him and it limited the Browns' potential for that season. But now we see what Kevin Stefanski said in his Monday press conference. We saw what there was a report, I think it was from Jason Lloyd, that said that some players were miffed that Watson decided not to play, and therefore they had to go in with the 5th-round pick in DTR. Which, again, DTR made this roster as the backup for a reason, the top backup for a reason. The guy played well in the preseason, and there was enough confidence in him to trade away Josh Dobbs and keep him as the number 2. But then you get and this piled on top of Andrew Berry's presser, which people got frustrated with because he brought up the process. I don't really know what to make. I'm not frustrated by this week, but it seems like a lot of fans are, and it seems like we're only talking ourselves down into what's potentially going to be another lost season, even though we're 2-2 right now. We are in a better spot than the Steelers and the Bengals are, even though one of those teams got a victory against us. We're in a better spot than those two are right now, and yet it seems like we're kind of just waiting for the inevitable. I don't know what to make of it, and I know you have thoughts on this that I want to address.
The game against the Ravens, let's start there.
Sure.
I understand you thought Deshaun Watson is going to play if you're the Cleveland Browns. I'm not saying you specifically.
Right. Yeah.
To not have a different game plan for your rookie quarterback, though, was very eye-opening.
That was strange.
36 passing attempts. Yes, we don't have Nick Chubb, but at the same time, we still have a very good offensive line that can run block. We know how good they are at run blocking. It's why running the football has been part of our identity, and also why we always bang the table to run the damn ball. But that's neither here nor there, right? Whether they honestly thought Watson was going to play that morning, they decided he's not going to, so whatever. But then for Stefanski to come out and say that he was cleared, Deshaun Watson was cleared, and decided he wasn't going to play, and it rubbed teammates the wrong way. Didn't we get rid of Baker because he rubbed teammates the wrong way when he had his shoulder injury?
Seemingly.
Right? What kind of precedent is this setting, right? We're not moving off Deshaun Watson because of the contract.
No.
But if these guys are getting frustrated in the locker room again, it's like, what's going to happen? Now, could he come back after the bye against San Francisco? It's not going to be easy and still do what he did against Tennessee. We're not going to talk about this. This is all just going to be we're on the bye week. But if he comes back, or let alone doesn't play, we're going to be in a really, really weird spot because the defense, you finally saw what happened. Even that Pittsburgh game, the offense wasn't good.
No.
But the offense still did enough at times to keep the defense off the field. Mm-hmm. The amount of times this offense was 3 and out this past Sunday against Baltimore, the defense was starting to get tired. Baltimore finally made the Browns defense look like practically every other defense in the NFL, which was easy to score on. We know that's not the case, but there's something going on here, and I don't like it. And Andrew Berry then with his press conference on Wednesday, I believe, or Tuesday or Wednesday, also then telling the fans to be patient. We've been patient enough. We've been patient far too long. We've been patient since this team came back in 1999, the shirt that I have on, right? Like, you can't tell us to be patient. You made this move because it was supposed to make us better. Yes, it came with a lot of off-the-field issues, okay? Some people didn't like the move. That's fine. But I just did not think that was the right thing for him to say. I also just don't know what you want us to be patient about because it seems like there's definitely some miscommunication right now between Watson and the coaching staff.
The miscommunication is the most frustrating thing.
That's the thing. Is like, I just don't know what to think right now. And obviously it's worse because if we were 3-1 and this happened, probably not going this deep into it. We're 2-2. We come out and probably play a top 3 team in the NFL in the 49ers, which is not going to be easy. Luckily we get it at home, and that line's already out. San Francisco's already favored by 3. And so now you're talking about, like, if Watson doesn't play, that spread's going to go way the other way. I just don't know. It'd be different, I think, if we played this Sunday. We could actually see what's going to happen, but now we have to wait a full extra week with the bye. But I am concerned. I really am.
That the bye helps because it gives you time to recover. But and kind of going back to the miscommunication and the thing involving what Stefanski said about Watson is that because we've seen a great improvement from one side of the ball for the team, this year in the defense, I think I'm starting to, I should say, I don't want to speak for anybody else. You're starting to see the frustration brewing because when you thought all the problems had been ironed out, we have all of the tools ready to go as a potential competitive football team. There's still some issues. There's still some seeming issues where I know people have kind of gotten on Stefanski in the past for not relinquishing the play calls, for not being able to adjust in real time. And I don't know. I think the next few weeks are going to determine whether or not the determining factor as to what's holding a lot of good talent on this Browns team back is the play caller, and the play caller is the head coach. And it makes you wonder, because it's very hard to find a legitimately great candidate for a head coach. Yep. It is. And Kevin Stefanski, since 1999, is probably the most successful Cleveland Browns tenured head coach. That being said, I think we kind of got into this with Baker like two or so years ago or so. Like, when is enough enough? Can we, we're good right now, but can we get better? I don't know. I can't speak as to right now. We're going to have to figure out in time if the Browns are going to need to make a move in order to fully, what's the word I'm looking for? To fully show what this team is capable of. The defense is doing it right now. Even with the performance against Baltimore, the defense has shown it. The offense just hasn't quite clicked in the years that Stefanski's been here. And they've had some blips here and there, but we've never seen an offensive explosion like you've seen in Miami. We've never seen an offensive explosion like in Buffalo. We've never seen an offensive explosion like in Philly. And right now, I really want to know if Stefanski is the true leader of the future, because right now we're starting to show cracks, I think, no matter how composed he is in his press conferences. I can't fully say I still have my full support of Stefanski.
No, and at one point, I mean, it's going to figure itself out if this doesn't get turned around. It was Baker, right? Baker is the reason we weren't good, right? Then it was, we had to start Brissett, so, it's not fair. We couldn't.
Right.
But there's one common guy right now that is following along with some of these issues, and it's Kevin Stefanski, right? If it wasn't Baker, it was the defense, right? How many games did we lose 2 years ago in which the defense was just putrid?
Right.
And last year, too. If it was, we scored, was it 17 points last year? 20, maybe it was 20 points every game last year. We would have had a winning record, made the playoffs, whatever. At some point, though, it's going to go back to Stefanski. And right now, with another potential, I don't want to say fracture, but miscommunication, guys being upset in the locker room, as the coach, you have to have control of your locker room. You're the guy that they look to every day. You're the guy making the calls. You're the guy, for the most part, putting all these players in position. So I don't know. And it's hard for me because I take some of the things from the past with him and the questionable decisions he's made. And nothing's changed. And honestly, my biggest gripe right now is, what is the one thing Kevin Stefanski loves? Okay. And I know we're talking about a bunch of different things right now. Mm-hmm. He loves his tight ends.
Sure.
So we paid David Njoku. We went out, we got Jordan Akins. And we still have Harrison Bryant. Harrison Bryant has 3 catches this year on 5 targets. Jordan Akins has 3 catches on 4 targets. And David Njoku has 16 catches for 138 yards on 18 targets. Where is this? We got to feed the tight end. I feel like when we had Austin Hooper, he was getting 5-6 targets a game, even if he had the worst run after the catch I've ever seen in my life, because he just fell down every time. I don't know what's going on. Your leading receiver is Amari Cooper, as it should be, with 259 yards.
Yeah.
Elijah Moore, you heard Barry the other day talk about how he's an explosive playmaker. Then throw the ball down the field. Stop putting him in. I like the reverses. I like the end arounds here and there, but we got to figure out a way to get these guys the ball through playmakers, right? Mm-hmm. You got to get the ball into your playmakers' hands. Andy Reid, a genius offensive mind. When he had Tyreek Hill, how many times did the ball just get to Tyreek Hill's hands and he makes stuff happen? Much like we're seeing in Miami at times too. Get it into Elijah Moore's hands. I think Elijah Moore is a dynamic playmaker.
He is.
We haven't seen it, and then it's like there's no leash, right? Last week with the play where he just starts running backwards and trying to outrun everybody, it's like, no, that's a college type thing you could try, maybe, but not in the NFL. It's confusing. It's irritating because as good as we looked against Tennessee to last week with DTR, the no adjustments, same game plan for Watson, it's just bizarre. I'm not I haven't been sold on Kevin Stefanski, as most people know who have ever watched this podcast since we started. It's getting harder and harder to defend him, especially when every single press conference is, I got to be better.
Yeah.
How much longer can you, if I did bad at my job and I said I got to be better for a year, I'm probably fired. How much longer can this guy get away with saying, I got to be better? Put that on me. Like, honestly, it's an honest question. How many times can he possibly say, I got to be better? And then not get better?
I love his demeanor as a head coach. I wish that there was more visible success to match that sort of mindset, because his demeanor is one of my favorites in the NFL. Mm-hmm. I just wish that there was more to back that up. And I think it's an organization that doesn't want to show panic because we've shown panic so many times before it. But in doing so, it's kind of like you're trying so hard not to make a mistake, you end up making a mistake anyway. So that's where I'm kind of at right now. And again, we have a bye week, so this is like just us having something to talk about. We go to San Francisco. We play San Francisco at home, so there's the chance to recoup and get back to a winning mark. Although, again, having your bye week into week 5 of the season, that's really tough to play 3 consecutive months of football, and that's not even including potential postseason spots. So yeah, I don't know. Again, we could be worse. Could be the Bengals. They're in a tough spot right now. I know there are some people who think that they're going, if they lose this week, they're going to try and tank for Marvin Harrison, which would be a very interesting scenario because then they could potentially get rid of T. Higgins.
Speaking of tanking, there's a lot of talk about multiple teams in the NFL tanking if they lose this week, which is the first time I think we've ever kind of been in this scenario, right? Like going into the season, we know what teams aren't good, right? Or expect to know what teams aren't good. This is a team that I think a lot of people thought could win the Super Bowl, the Cincinnati Bengals, or get to the Super Bowl again.
They got to the AFC title game 2 years in a row.
And now it's, if they lose, they're probably going to tank. Yeah, if the Vikings lose, a lot of people were high on.
Because it's so hard to come back from 1-4, 1-5. Yeah.
With how many teams that we're talking about possibly tanking, are we going to eventually find ourselves in a spot almost like the NBA lottery?
Were they?
Are they going to? Because
they've talked about that.
I feel like this is just right. Cardinals suck. Bears suck. Panthers suck, but that's the Bears pick too.
Yes.
Right. Texans, people thought were going to suck. They've actually been probably one of the biggest surprises in the NFL. Patriots suck. Now the Bengals are over here. They're not playing well. I mean, you expected the Cardinals to be bad with no Kyler Murray. The Bears, I think, probably were the most overhyped team going into the season. I think it's safe to say they've looked
based on the first few weeks. Sure,
they've looked like the worst team. The Bengals, you expect. I mean, you pull up standings. It's the Jets. That's because of Aaron Rodgers getting hurt. I mentioned the Patriots sucking. You look at the AFC West. The Broncos suck. The Raiders suck. The Giants. That's another team people were high on, expecting to make the playoffs. They're 1-3. Bears 0-4. Vikings 1-3. There's a lot of teams out here right now.
It's very top heavy right now in the league.
Yeah,
because it's like Buffalo, Miami. Those are the two. Baltimore's up there. The South is kind of idle. The Chiefs are up there even after their week 1 start. Philly's up there. Detroit's up there. Tampa Bay's up there. We'll talk about Tampa Bay probably. San Francisco's up there. Seattle's up there. Yeah, it seems like all the good teams are great and all the bad teams are horrible.
Yeah, but then you have a couple teams in there that you expected to be great and they're bad. So,
no,
I mean, and to your point, if the Bengals lose this week, now, if they lose this week, I think they have no choice but to tank because they play the Cardinals.
Okay, yeah.
If the Bengals lose this week, I don't think they have a choice. They're going to have to bench Burrow, let his calf get healthy. They're going to have to try to tank without coming out and saying it, even though it seems like people are saying it everywhere.
Then does that cause issue? I mean, obviously it's going to cause, if he understands, that's one thing. But if Burrow's still like, no, I want to keep going. I want to try and get this team back on track. Does that cause a friction with him and the team? Because that could obviously cause issues with him and the head coach. If the head coach is not on board, I mean, Zach Taylor's in a tough spot right now. Because even though this guy made the Super Bowl 2 years ago, no one has ever given Zach Taylor as the reason that they made that Super Bowl. It was because of the players.
Right.
So I think Zach Taylor's in such a tough spot right now, and it's probably, if it keeps going like this, he's not going to have a job by the end of the year. I don't know. We talked about the Jets. I still think they should trade for Kirk Cousins because, you mentioned the 1 year left on his contract that can kind of suffice for when Aaron Rodgers gets back, which apparently he's trying to get back during this season now. He said
That's
on
very interesting.
Pat McAfee, which is, I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. We talked about Justin Fields. If the Bears, I had heard, I don't think this is know if this is true, But I had heard a rumor that if the Bears lose specifically this week and drop to 0-5, they're going to fire Eberflus. They're going to bench Fields and try to trade him. To me, I think the Atlanta Falcons would probably be the best move because obviously not only would it be a reunion, but it would be a better system might fit, I think, for him, a fresh start.
And he'd be home. Keep in mind, he's from the Georgia area.
Home, but we also mentioned with New York, it's like him and Garrett Wilson getting back together. But I don't think the Jets would be as good a fit for him.
I don't think they could take the. I mean, he's a first round pick too.
No.
Let's keep that in mind too.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers' money is guaranteed.
Well, how many years does he have on his deal left? One after this year.
So he was drafted in
2021, right?
2020 was his last year, so he would have been drafted in
2021.
Well, no, the bowl game would have been 2020 technically. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but but it was the spring of 2021.
Yeah, okay, no, you're right. Yep.
So this is his third year in the league.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we would have a fourth year and the fifth year option, which honestly probably every team would pick up except for the Chicago Bears.
Sure,
that's the Chicago Bears we're talking about. So I think a lot of teams would take a flyer on Justin Fields because he's shown flashes, right? He's shown flashes,
and he's shown flashes here, but he has shown like a lot of bad tendencies this year. Obviously, the holding onto the ball too long, not being as much of a playmaker as he was at Ohio State and early on in his career. If he can get some of that confidence back and have some time to be able to develop, I think he can be okay. I actually think the same thing as Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, if he just gets some time to have a better stance around him, can do something. And I understand that people being like, yeah, well, his year at BYU during the pandemic season beefed up his numbers, and that's why he was taking it. Fair. But this is a guy that actually outplayed Patrick Mahomes in the Sunday night game.
Yeah.
Got called trash for Rodney Harrison. He apologized for it. We don't have to go there. But, again, this is a guy that should not have been starting this year.
Right.
And it was such a tough scenario for them to be put in. I think the Jets are going to realize now that if they want to salvage their season, they got to go after somebody else. Probably Cousins, because the Vikings I don't think are going to be much of a runner either, especially with Detroit. And maybe Green Bay is still in the division, but it's probably going to be Detroit if we're going to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the kind of the touch points we were talking about in the NFL. I got so frustrated with Washington this week not beating Philly, especially with that replay in the end in overtime. He stepped on the guy's wrist. It would have been a completed pass if he didn't step on the guy's wrist, and then it was close enough. But either way, there was that. And then the South is very interesting right now because they're all 2-2 right now. Every team in the South is 2-2. I'm surprised to say that Houston might be a team that could break away if they get a couple of games here. And it's not just because CJ Stroud has been putting up video game like numbers. I think this is a better team than last year at the start. I think this is a tougher team. I think teams are going to, especially after the Steelers game, which granted the Steelers are not great to begin with, and Pickett will be out for a few weeks, which will be nightmarish for them. It's seemingly, I don't know. He said that he might return this week. Did they say? I don't know if that's.
We'll have to wait and see. I think.
I don't know about that, but Houston's an interesting case where if Indianapolis doesn't get it together, that could be the leader in the AFC South.
And let's look. Texans play the Falcons this week. They could win that game. They play the Saints at home. It's a winnable game. They play the Panthers. Winnable game. You're talking about the Texans. Now it's the NFL. We saw last week a lot of weird things happen. They could be 5-2. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibilities here. They have a bye after the Texans game before they would play the Panthers. Then they would play Tampa Bay. Then they play the Bengals. Then they play the Cardinals. I mean, Mitch, if the Bengals lose and they tank, you're talking about their toughest game in that stretch is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if we're being honest. I mean, the Texans, and this is the luxury of being a bad team the year before when the schedule comes out, right? But the Texans, if they continue this, and CJ Stroud, who is right now on pace for, or currently is one of the top 3 rookie performances thus far through 4 weeks in NFL history as a quarterback, this is a sneaky team that could end up being in the playoffs. And then they play the Jags, which that's a big one. They already beat them. Then the Broncos, they have the Jets on there, Titans, Browns, Titans, Colts. I mean, this is an easy schedule if they keep playing like they have been.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see where it goes. Real quick, you take stock in one AFC team right now, Chiefs or Bills. Who do you take? Because I have my answer.
It's Chiefs.
Bill? No.
It's always the Chiefs.
Look.
Until the Buffalo Bills can beat the Chiefs in the playoffs.
Okay.
I have to ride with the Chiefs.
They just beat Miami like 48-20, dude. Like that
Well,
offense.
I know they look great.
That offense is solid.
I'm not saying the Buffalo Bills aren't good.
I don't think this is as good a Chiefs team. It's still a very good Chiefs team, but not as good a Chiefs team.
It's like they almost have too many distractions. It's like there's a certain celebrity that's just distracting everybody right now that shows up to their games.
Apparently, I don't know much about that.
About that.
Not really. I didn't see a flashing to them after an Isaiah Pacheco 64-yard touchdown to lead off the game. I didn't see that at all.
I mean, I heard there was a celebrity there, wasn't it?
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman.
Yes,
Yeah,
and Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, okay. Yep, that's probably what it was. Donna Kelsey.
What about the blonde one though? Blake Lively. Yes, that's who it was. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Her Ryan Reynolds power couple.
For sure. So yeah, that's what we have for the NFL. We'll obviously go into it next week, and then I'm curious. I get this week off because I usually work Browns games, but I get to kind of just sit at home and relax all day, which will be nice. And it is now time for another segment of Fuel, Move, Recover, featuring Dr. Michele Ionno, a physical therapist and president of Advancing Athletics. Doc, thank you so much for taking the time once again this week.
Appreciate it, Mitch.
Now we're getting into the end of the fall sports season, and with that, the weather is changing. We're losing daylight. A number of things are changing in terms of these factors. But the inner factors that a lot of student athletes can determine is what goes in and out of their body in terms of snacks and drinks. Take me through this one, Michele. It's a very important topic right now, and kind of take me through the details regarding this.
Yeah, sure thing, Mitch. The first thing, of course, is that this is not medical advice. And we are, talking generally about, these things that affect everybody. And I have a pair of great registered dietitians that work for Advancing Athletics, and they would be more than happy to help you with this. And, obviously there's many other resources that that you can get access to. I'm happy to help anybody who's interested with that. Also, your athletic trainer, if you have one, can be a good resource, like a good starting point also. And it's just, I think it's important for us to talk about this because now it's getting harder to practice and compete on just caffeine and adrenaline alone. So the wear and tear of the season, we're getting into cold and flu season, sleep deprivation, stress, energy demands, all these things are contributing to, why we need to be more intentional with your fueling if you haven't been already.
And kind of take me through this one, Doug. What is a good snack? And I obviously I know what a good snack and a bad snack look like, contrary to some people who know me. But is there a certain standard for particularly certain ages kids are at, or certain sports that they play in a season?
Yeah, Mountain Dew and Doritos, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like the breakfast of champions. It's again, it's some of this is obvious, right? And so that's good. Good snacks. It's good that people understand kind of the obviousness of it, but good snacks are healthy and, have a balance of nutrients in them. I think that it's important to remember, what your sport is, do you need something immediate, like a burst right now versus you're doing cross country and this is my long run and I'm going to be running for 5 miles continuously. And that's the whole workout. Versus football, volleyball, we're practicing plays, we're, doing drills, whatever. So that's where we start to get into the nuance more of good versus bad. So something that is prolonged, you're going to need more of a sustained energy source, something that takes a little bit longer to break down versus, if you need a burst of energy, like I need this right now. So obviously, there are some things that we would recommend better than we would recommend things that are better than others, but really any snack is better than no snack. That's the first and most important thing, is that don't make a point. You want to do well. And so then you just skip altogether. Well, you're going to have a poor practice and there will be other negative consequences to that. So candy bars, Pop-Tarts, all these kind of things can be good, short-term, hacks that you can go to. It's just that we would rather, there's other options that you can do that are more sustainable and also healthy, and so peanut butter sandwiches, that's a big one. Also, these things are perishable. So they don't need to be refrigerated. They can stay in your bag all day. Something like peanut butter sandwich. A lot of people have tree nut allergies now. So instead, let's maybe do a bagel, which is like some energy, and a package of tuna, and then that way you get some protein and you get some carbs. All right, now let's go to somebody who has like a tuna allergy or just doesn't like fish in general. Some chips and hummus, and then maybe a protein shake. So those are 3 options that you can kind of utilize, and that you can kind of see that these things have a mix of nutrients in them, and they are useful for, the variety of demands that a sport would have. And again, there's no real standard for age and sport. It's more about what your stomach can handle, or not.
And then we go over from the snack side to the drink side, because there are a number of drinks that, kids are taking in practice and in games. I mean, we kind of touched on this, I think, a while ago, maybe our first ever discussion here on the Big Time Sports Podcast show. But and you brought up a good point of where a lot of these sort of drinks are like built for taste and not performance. But kind of, can you go a little further into that detail and kind of give us what drinks are better and which ones are worse?
Yeah. So it's just like many things in America, we live in a wonderful country, but marketing and consumerism really influences the way that we think about some of this stuff. Like most athletes don't actually drink like the Gatorade that we buy at like a Bell store, and they're drinking different versions of it, and on top, or if at all. So generally speaking, what you can buy at a Bell store or, any other convenience store is not exactly manufactured to be the best option for an athlete. They're made to taste good, because how many people are buying them that are on road trips, or, they just want something other than water, or they're trying not to choose pop, or, something like that. So that's the first thing. Yeah, as we talked about in our first ever episode, we kind of discussed this, and it was August, and talked about heat and whatnot. It's good for us to review that there are better things that are engineered more for performance, things like Noon, NUUN, or that comes in tablet form, or something like Liquid IV, which comes in like a powder form, and that would be, think of like Crystal Light, or, those kind of things that you can pick up. So, and then what you do is you just take that and add it to your bottle of water, and you can utilize that while you're actually competing. So think about that kind of stuff, and think about when you would need that other stuff in water. So I would need it during practice and or usually after practice. Sometimes you've been outside a lot, and then it's like, I already feel like I'm kind of drained, and then I have to go compete or whatever. Yeah, maybe it makes sense to like have that. So like Saturday, I was outside working all day, and I knew I wanted to go for a run later. And I had 2 noons. I had one after I finished my work. Then I had one as I was going to the stadium to work out. And then I finished that second one while I was there, and then just had water for the rest of the day, because I was kind of replenishing as I was going. I think another important thing is that appreciating or acknowledging that studying can also take some of that out of you. So it's totally fine and makes a lot of sense to have a noon, like after you've had a long study session. And the other important thing I'm going to mention is that artificial sugar is bad. The sugar-free versions are not good for you. So if you're choosing one of these drinks, you should be choosing the one that has actual sugar in it, just less, or you drink the whole version, the regular version, because you're trying to replenish the energy that you need also. And so that sugar will help kind of give you that burst. A lot of people don't like how potent regular Gatorade is. So you and your friend could buy one and then split it, between a bottle of water or something like that, make a 50-50 dilution of water and Gatorade. And that's a good way to cut down on the sugariness, but then get all the other stuff. So It's just remember that you need these substances. And then once you kind of get that back, switch back to just drinking water.
What are your thoughts on something like energy drinks, and how do they fit into all this for student athletes?
Yeah, that's another good one. In that, you know, the thing that we need to appreciate is that energy drinks, caffeine, in general, allow us to live an artificial lifestyle. So we're allowed to be sleep deprived. You're allowed to like do more things than you otherwise would have to, because you can like utilize this fake energy source. Because really, you're supposed to get your energy from food and sleep. That's it. Until we discovered this amazing substance, and now we use it to buttress or supplement our energy sources. So being mindful that how much caffeine you take in is a big factor in how well you rest, your jitteriness, stuff like that. A big cup of coffee, for those of us that drink it, would have approximately 100 milligrams of caffeine. Having tea, is steeping a bag of tea, the ones that actually have caffeine in them, you're looking at about 60 milligrams of caffeine. And Alani, Celsius, Prime, these other things have like 200 to 250 milligrams of caffeine. So you're drinking the equivalent of about, 4 teas or like 2 massive cups of coffee in one can. So a lot of people don't even realize what it's like to have natural energy because they're so over-caffeinated. And a lot of these substances we're finding more and more and more are not healthy for you, the substances that are actually in them. So try and drink things that are more natural, things like coffee and tea. Try not to put too much sweetener in them. And, try to do the things that will help you feel better and be more energetic, getting rid of your stress, getting enough sleep. And sometimes you're not actually tired. You're just hypoglycemic. Your blood sugar is low. So you actually don't need more caffeine. You just need to eat something. And so, which takes us back to the very beginning about how, it's getting harder and harder to live on just caffeine and adrenaline when you get to this point, the back end of the season. So nobody's flawless though. So, and sometimes you're going to have one, like I'll have a Red Bull from time to time myself. So, I'm not talking from this high horse, but do you have to get the biggest one possible? Second thing is, do you have to drink the whole thing? Do you really need all that? Maybe sip on it and you say, okay, now how do I feel? Oh no, I need to finish it. Or, you know what, actually I'm fine. So I'm either going to pitch it or buy the ones that have a sealable top. And then you can drink half of it now and maybe half of it at the end of practice because you have to study or, run chores or, whatever. It's just, if you have too much of it, or if you have too much of it too late in the day, really none of us should be drinking caffeine afternoon, which that's a hard sell. That's a hard change to make. But it really will affect you. If you're having it in the afternoon, it'll affect your sleep. And then you're just chasing your tail. You need it tomorrow because now you're sleep deprived because you had so much caffeine that you couldn't get good rest.
And finally, Doc, we talk about the things that can be good for student athletes, the sort of snacks and drinks. How should they practice these sort of supplements? How should they kind of carry out the way that they take these in, and like whether it be on a daily basis or just kind of a long-term effect?
Okay. Good point, Mitch. So, me and our viewers / listeners should know me well enough by now that I'm a pretty pragmatic guy. I try really hard to give information, but also like accept reality. So there's this mental health condition called orthorexia. Most people are aware of things like anorexia, where how you view yourself like is skewed from what you actually are. And so you make unhealthy decisions trying to change that thing. That's what anorexia is. Orthorexia, and these are, again, we're just skimming topics. Orthorexia is somebody who understands that I have to eat well, and eating poorly results in bad things. And so what happens is is that they make these choices that actually have a negative impact, even though they're trying to do a good thing. For example, you get done with practice, everybody's going to Burger King, and then you decide not to eat anything because you know Burger King's not good for you and that's not good fuel. Well, sure, but also you need to eat something. You just ran 7 miles. You just played a whole practice, and this is the only meal you're going to have. So you need to have this now. So, and then, try and make good choices in general throughout the rest of the day or the rest of the week, whatever. Orthorexia is that when you kind of sabotage on accident, of course, your own wellness because you don't eat anything. And so not a lot, but some kids deal with that. And also some kids are trying to make changes to their bodies. They're still developing. And then they're like, oh, I want to kind of slim down or whatever. At the same time as they're competing in sports, that's just not how it works. And even with wrestling, which is the sport where you are trying to change your weight during the season, most people understand that can be a slippery slope as well. So something is better than nothing. Natural is better than artificial. In the short term, you just need to eat something. In the long term, we try to experiment, kind of like what we talked about already. What sports drink if I just am in a pickle and I need something, and then try to get something that's natural, get a smaller one, share it with a friend, things like that. You should have a snack after school, after lunch, before practice, and then have a meal after practice. So you will get more out of practice. You will get more out of the gym. You will get more out of life if you are well-fueled, working hard, and healthy. Just depriving yourself of, fuel will just make all these things harder and leave you at more risk of injury, performing poorly, getting sick, stuff like that. So those are just some kind of things that I wanted to touch on at the end here. And then just remember that always being malnourished is always a bad thing. And so even if you're in, you have to make a choice of a candy bar, Pop-Tart, something like that. Like that's okay. It's better than nothing. You need some energy, use it. And then let's see if we can pick something better for later. And then finally, it is normal to struggle, Mitch, with your relationship with food. That is something a lot of people deal with. So there are people like the two women that work for me, Allie and Lindsay, that help people kind of make sure they're eating enough, but not too much, and the right kind of foods. Some people are picky, some people have allergies. And then finally is that it's okay to struggle to understand mentally your relationship to food. And that's something that mental health professionals certainly can help you with. And it's normal. It's very normal, very common. So don't feel like you're the problem. Reach out, talk to people, start with your athletic trainer, start with an adult you trust, and then start to build stuff kind of out from there. And then coaches, parents, trainers that are listening to this, like, remember that there are professionals out there that can kind of help you give better advice, and or there are people out there that can help your kids kind of understand what's going on.
Well, Doc, where can people who may be seeking out your services such as yours, or for those of Advancing Athletics, be able to find you or Advancing Athletics?
So if you want to reach out to me directly, you can email me, recover@advancingathletics.com. You can find me on X or Instagram by my name, MicheleIonno, and Advancing Athletics is on both Facebook and Instagram. Appreciate likes and follows, and reach out if you guys have any questions at all.
Well, that is another segment of Fuel, Move, Recover. Michele, Ionno, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thanks, Mitch.
Vibe Auto Sales, located on West High Avenue in New Philadelphia and Cleveland Avenue in Canton, is a used car dealership committed to getting financing for everyone. We give every customer that walks in our showrooms a prime buying experience, no matter their credit score or financial situation. Current inventory can be viewed at www.wefinancenow.com. Check out our Facebook pages for the most up-to-date information about upcoming events and promotions happening at Vibe Auto Sales.
Are you trying to increase your speed, quickness, vertical leap, and agility? If so, NST Sports Performance is for you. NST trains athletes ages 5 through pro. NST designs each program specific to the athlete's needs, goals, and sports. For more, visit nstsports.com. Locations in North Canton and New Philadelphia. It's nstsports.com.
If you're looking for a new or pre-owned car or truck, why not see the Parkway Auto Group? Parkway is a special group of automotive experts with 8 brands to satisfy your needs. Come see the difference at the Parkway Auto Group on Commercial Parkway in Dover. 8 brands and 1 family. It's Parkway Auto Group.
The Furby Electric Supply Company has bright ideas for your home. Save money by converting to energy-efficient electrical products or add ambiance with beautiful lighting features. It begins with a professional consultation and a visit to the Furby Lighting Showroom. Then certified Furby contractors complete your project right and on time. Since 1934, 4 generations have built a reputation of quality and trust, and they offer emergency services too. Just visit Furby.com. That's F-U-R-B-A-Y. The Furby Electric Supply Company.
It takes a lot of practice to have a winning team. Albin Title has over 100 years of combined experience handling real estate, title, and escrow transactions. They serve Tuscarawas, Stark, Carroll, Harrison counties, and more. So choose Albin Title for your next home refinance, sale, or purchase. They'll get it done quickly and professionally. Contact Albin Title at 330-334-5800 or visit their website albintitle.com. Let them put their experience to work for you.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
Fall is in the air and part-time career enhancement courses at Buckeye Career Center are on the horizon. Registration is now open for Introduction to Beekeeping, Basic Small Engine Repair, and Sign Language. These part-time offerings run on Tuesday evenings and begin in November. Let Buckeye Career Center help you learn a new skill or advance your current skill set. Call 330-339-2288 for more information or to reserve your seat in one of these or our other part-time classes.
Have you checked in on someone yet today? This is your reminder. A simple text, call, or message. You don't have to be a professional to check in. You just have to ask and listen. Are you someone who could use a check-in? Dial 988 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A message from Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery. Now we go on to the NBA side where we had Cavs Media Day the other day. I was there. I feel special about that. They actually gave us they gave us a brunch at the beginning of it, and they had I don't remember the name of the restaurant where they had the food come in from, but they had like some really weird foods for a brunch. It was like donut hamburgers and a bunch of other things to where, especially when I'm working on those days, like I know I'm gonna sound like I'm primpy and everything, but like I like to not like eat so much. Like I like to focus on work. So when I saw people eating that, I thought, oh, but then they had a vat of mac and cheese, and I'm like, because I love mac and cheese. But no, we go in there, we see all the players in there, and it really is kind of just fascinating to see all those guys just kind of walking in as they're, just getting ready and everything. And sat in a bunch of press conferences, saw a number of topics that they were touched on. Obviously, JB Bickerstaff and Kobe Altman went first. Kobe addressed his offseason driving DUI situation. They also talked about Ricky Rubio not being there. He's still on his mental health leave. And, they the big emphasis was just toughness from this past year, too. Obviously, we got out physical in the Knicks playoff series, so it was really a big emphasis on trying to not only improve toughness, but also improve outside shooting. Obviously, when you make the moves for Max Strus and George Niang, you get to see a potential an improvement there. Talked to a number of the star players, Donovan Mitchell, Jarrett Allen, Darius Garland. Tristan Thompson made his return, which was very interesting.
Question about that. He's wearing number 12 this year.
Yes.
We've talked about number being retired. So is it number 13 that gets retired because that's what he wore?
Well,
or is it number 12
that's what Rubio's wearing right now. So I can't say Rubio's going to get it right now. He said it was because it was the next number below, and he wore it in high school. That's what he said. So yeah, that's going to be. I think Tristan. I don't think it's going to be a number retirement case. Maybe. It's obviously going to be a Cavs Ring of Honor case, but yeah, not like that. But it was cool. Like he was touting up the city, saying, "Hey, I love it here. I'm happy to be back here." And he had a quote about the Lillard trade to the Bucks. He said something along the lines of he was asked is the team focused in on that now because the East is gonna get better? He's like, well, if you should see how you see what Miami thinks of it right now, and you could hear some gasps from the reporters in the background there. I didn't gasp, but I was kind of like that a little bit. But yeah, that's that. Us journalists always looking for the headlines, always looking to twist the stories into what they aren't.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Donovan Mitchell said he's not going to sign an extension before the season starts. But no, he explained the whole thing. You and I kind of talked about this before, how he could still sign an extension next year.
Yeah.
This is again, it's going to be a trial run to determine whether or not this team is going to be serious enough for him to commit long term to. And I'm not saying that he has his mind made up at all right now. I don't think that's the case right now. He's just focused on what's happening this year, and I think the team is trying to not only build on the success of last season, but they're going to go into a tougher conference this year. Milwaukee's gotten a little bit better. Boston's got a little bit better. Those are the two teams that everybody's touting for the conference finals right now, just automatically, and for good reason. Not to mention reigning conference champion Miami.
Yep.
And teams like the Knicks and the Sixers still in there. So if the Cavs were the 6th seed this year or the 7th seed, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. But I'm hoping for them to do better.
I would say the Cavaliers should be a 5 seed or better. Being honest with you, Philadelphia should not be better than us.
No.
With the James Harden drama going on right now.
Yeah.
I honestly think even with him coming back, that team is so flawed in certain ways. They were exposed that this team should be better. Yes, Joel Embiid is one of the best players in the NBA, though. I'm not going to sit here and act like he's not. He's extremely talented.
Yeah.
Realistically, both him and Jokic are both generational talents when you look at the size and how they play basketball. This team should, though, be nothing worse than a 5 seed. There's a team out there that people keep talking about as a sleeper, and it's the Brooklyn Nets. I don't know if I necessarily buy that. I still think this team...
Ben Simmons' team?
Yeah, Ben Simmons' yeah. I still think this team, as quickly as it ended in the playoffs last year, and I think we all knew it was ending before the series was even over, based off how we watched those games and how the Knicks played in them. I still think this team, after the additions we made, is better than the New York Knicks. And I do think, with how we lost, it may have been the best thing for us.
Maybe.
For us to realize, oh, shoot, we are soft. We're a soft team. We have Jared Allen saying the lights were too bright. Why would you ever say that? We need to figure that out. I think Tristan Thompson, even if he doesn't play, if he takes more of a Kendrick Perkins role.
Yes.
Remember Kendrick Perkins when he was here? Hardly ever played during that 18 season.
But he was the veteran. Granted, I think Tristan will be a more active veteran than Kendrick was. But I kind of get what you're saying.
I still think having somebody like that who's been through it all, who's been to the finals before, here for 4 straight years, who has that toughness. When you talk about toughness, Mitch, he had the longest consecutive game played streak in the NBA.
Sure.
I liked the signing. I think a lot of people don't even realize we have him again, because it was so under the radar when it happened. But in talks of Donovan Mitchell, I was totally fine with how he handled the question. I thought he gave the best possible answer. He also addressed that's how I want to address it, even though he knows he's going to be asked about it multiple times, probably either when we are riding high or if we hit a low during the season, right? Of Donovan, are you happy if the Cavs are struggling? Something happens, right? Somebody gets hurt. Donovan, you happy right now? You've lost 9 of your last 11. He's going to get asked that all season long. I'm not going to worry. We have 2 years left of him. Typically, you don't see many guys sign that extension until the last year of their contract anyway. So to me, it's news because it's a top player in the NBA. This is just nothing that I'm worried about right now.
He had arguably his best overall season last year individually, career highs in points, rebounds, assists, steals, the whole thing. So he can build upon this year and potentially build his value even more for the next season. We mentioned it off the air with you. There were with Media Day, you kind of ask a couple of ancillary questions sometimes where it's what'd you think of? So, for example, Jokic at the Nuggets thing, it was what do you think about Coach Prime and everything that's going on in Colorado? He's I don't really know anything about that, which really proves that man just does not care about he just anything in the offseason. It's just horses. That's all it is with him. But in all seriousness, I wanted to ask Donovan, first of all, Tom Withers, who's one of the best writers that the area has, writes for the AP. Asked him about I think Donovan was at the Browns game this past week with Lamar Jackson stuff on because they both went to the same school.
Louisville stuff. He was not wearing a Ravens jersey. It was a Louisville jersey.
What it was not. It was Louisville. So I didn't know if I thought I saw him with Baltimore stuff on, but I might be wrong. I didn't.
Well,
see that.
I only saw the jersey. So if he had something else on, that's
so. But he was asked about that, and he kind of like laughed it off and everything. And then at the end of the conference, he kind of came back. He went away from the table, came back, and was like, "Just so you guys know, Lamar and I went to the same school. All right, that's it." And then he walked away, and I was like, "Yeah." Like, I don't like that the city of Cleveland right now is kind of like a jealous girlfriend that landed the guy of her dreams. But it seems like even if the boyfriend's not like showing any signs of leaving, all the girlfriend can think about is, well, when, is he going to leave? If so, how's he going to leave? When's he going to leave? I don't love that mindset, but I also wanted to ask him, because I was afraid that it would get too New York centric. I wanted to ask him his thoughts on the Mets moving on from Buck Showalter, because he's a known Mets fan. So, but I didn't ask him that, so I guess I'll never know his opinion until I see him again in the locker room in a few weeks.
In terms of him showing up to the game, I think at first I was triggered, is what you'd say. At the same time, though, it's hard not to be when you see all these other people with no Cleveland ties whatsoever that have shown up and support the other Cleveland teams, right?
Okay.
The Louisville jersey, yes, they both went to Louisville.
Yeah.
Right? I have no problem with that, but it's more of a no-feel situation. Like, you got to realize you should be better than that.
Okay.
I think, like, show up in neutral colors or something.
Has Donovan ever like shown up to a Cleveland game and worn the? I feel like he has.
I feel like he has for at least Guardians.
Yeah,
he definitely has. Because I think I remember the Mets tweeting something out about it.
Sure.
But you think back to Austin Hedges, right? This is a SoCal guy. He showed up to a Browns game last year, the day after we beat the Yankees in Game 3. Mm-hmm. The entire team was there, and he's rocking Browns games.
Yeah.
So I think us as Cleveland fans, we tend to think, oh, he's one of us, right? Baker Mayfield, when he was here, no ties to Cleveland whatsoever besides being the quarterback, shotgunning a beer at an Indians game. Everyone loved it because he's one of us, right? That's us. That's Cleveland, whatever it may be. But at the same time, like, looking back at it, did I like the look? No. Am I going to get upset about it? No. Because if you've been a fan of that team, let alone went to that school, right? You went there. Yeah. It is what it is. If you're there at the same time as Lamar Jackson, you guys are close, cool. So be it.
Have you checked in on someone yet today? This is your reminder. A simple text, call, or message. You don't have to be a professional to check in. You just have to ask and listen. Are you someone who could use a check-in? Dial 988 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A message from Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level low. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in the contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
Think Ferris. Where you matter.
You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. Alt Care.
Alt Care, Alt Care. Where you matter.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partnered with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
Happy Sardiversary with Sarda rider Anthony. We're celebrating 25 years with our valued riders.
And I absolutely enjoy riding the buses. I get to know a few of the drivers, very respectful, very professional. Just an all-around about good experience. It helps people get to where they're going. Disabled, veterans, or people going to work.
Thanks to all our riders as we celebrate Sarda 25 at Sarda.
You need to remodel your bath? You need JR Bath Company. Trust in the quality of JR Bath. It's fast, it's safe, and it's affordable. Call today at 1-800-664-2284 or go to jrbath.com. It all stems from when LeBron wore one of these that one night in 2007. Yeah, that's I got what was it? World Series patch. There you go.
You guys in it this year?
What's that?
Are the Yankees in it this year?
They're not.
Oh,
no,
okay.
none of the three top-paying teams, including the Mets, are in the playoffs this year. But that's a great segue. Let's go into that. So we're already through the wild card round by the time we recorded this episode. I got to fix this hat here. Again, is this the second year we've done the best of three wild card round, or is this the third year? Because last year I don't think they had any series go best of three, and this year none of them did, for sure.
The American League last year, it was Seattle in 2 over Toronto, and Cleveland over Tampa Bay in 2, Philadelphia over the Cardinals in 2, and then the Padres over the Mets in 2. So yeah, you're right. It's 2 straight years the wild card round that it has not even gone best of 3.
Couple things. Number one, literally the entire National League Division Series setup right now is the exact same, except it's Arizona instead of San Diego. Exactly the same. But the thing we wanted to talk about was the games yesterday where I want to start off with the American League. I did not expect Texas to do what it did to Tampa Bay. I don't think Tampa Bay expected what Texas did to Tampa Bay to happen. Another year, another disappointing finish for the Rays in the playoffs. You said they were the definition of peaking too early because they, for the first 2 months of the year, they looked like they were going to be what the Braves are now.
I think we also thought, is there a chance this team never loses?
Yeah.
Because they won 14 in a row to start the season,
Yes,
something like that?
and you know, they had a bad first game where they made 4 errors. The offense couldn't get things going. They only scored 1 run throughout the 2-game stretch. So Texas proved Texas has been a good offensive team this year, and they proved it in this series. Now, what I'm wondering is, we've seen a couple of management moves already this year. We mentioned Showalter not returning to the Mets, Phil Nevin not returning to the Angels. What's his name? Gabe Kapler not coming back to the Giants, which is interesting. Do you think, and I'm only saying this because it's now we're 3 years removed from their World Series run. Do you think, and I'm asking this too because for another team's sake, do you think that the Rays move on from Kevin Cash as their manager, and a team that housed Cash's employment before, do you think they jump on that opportunity?
Do you want the realistic answer here, or do you want the Guardian fan answer here?
As much as I love to be a dreamer, give me the realistic answer.
Realistic answer is probably they're not going to move off him.
No.
You look at 2 things. You look at the issue you had with Wander Franco, which actually happened when Cleveland was in Tampa this year.
Yeah, the day after the Guardians lost in that walk-off.
By Wander Franco, yeah, trust me.
They couldn't break that story game before.
Yeah. They added in for the guards this year. That's all.
Joking,
that was obviously a huge distraction. And then they had a lot of injuries, right? Look at us. I mean, there's not a lot you can do when you have injuries, right? And especially your starting rotation. The guy that they've been missing the past 2 years, Tyler Glasnow, ends up being the most healthy pitcher they have all year. And it's like, that's the guy that you kind of are like, he's, he could get hurt again. He has this injury problem.
And more appearances on John Boy's podcast rather than, is that John Boy or who does he do the show with?
I think it is John Boy.
It's not. Oh, yeah. I thought it was Chris Rowe. I don't know why. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Either way, it could be both.
Sorry.
Same, tomato. Both good baseball podcasts. You look at that. I just don't see it how they would move off him. I wouldn't be shocked though. I did not see Gabe Kapler getting canned by the San Francisco Giants. Buck Showalter, I had a feeling he was out of. He's getting older. He's getting older, and also the team's gotten worse. So hopefully, Francisco Lindor is enjoying being on a team that has a worse record than Cleveland this year. That's neither here nor there. But Tampa's just in a very, 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 very awkward spot, right? 19,000 people show up to their first playoff game.
I could not believe that game one.
I was upset last year in game one against Tampa when we played at 12:05 on a Friday afternoon.
Right.
And we still had 30,000 people. Can't blame weather. They play inside. Is it a good stadium inside? No. We know
it's rotting from the inside out.
We know Tropicana is not good. But this is a playoff game. Like, tickets weren't even expensive.
I know.
And they only got 19. So game two, though, was better, Mitch. They had about,
Still, there was that one shot
people.
of the one fan in the empty upper deck seats. I'll give him that. But still.
Yeah, about 500 more people. They were at 21,000, I think.
Oh, my Lord. It looked like Progressive Field in April.
And now there's also the talk of Tampa's going to get a brand new stadium. How do you justify giving a team a brand new stadium? Like, do they have proof that people aren't coming because Tropicana is that bad? Or I just think that they're in a very, very awkward spot. This is a team that has also had discussions in the past of, Tampa Bay could be relocated.
The Montreal thing, yeah. They would be better off just building a smaller stadium with better amenities rather than going for the same 40,000 seat, 35,000, 40,000 seat park that every team has, because St. Petersburg is not the market for them. And it is a market for them for the last since 1998. But literally, the hockey team and the football team play in Tampa, and they bring in numbers. Now, granted, they bring in championships. The Rays haven't yet, but I think the Rays would be well suited for Tampa. Now, I would think they wouldn't have been able to broker a deal if they're not focused on Tampa. It's either always been St. Petersburg or Canada with this team. I don't get that.
I don't either. You mentioned the Bucks and the
Lightning
winning championships. It's not like the Rays are this just bad team that has a good year. The Rays are one of the most consistent teams in baseball.
This is a good organization.
They when you look at small markets, Tampa Bay and Cleveland are very comparable.
Mm-hmm.
They've both been very successful. One had a Hall of Fame manager in Terry Francona. The other one is Kevin Cash, who is a disciple of the Terry Francona coaching tree.
Yeah.
And he has been able to do very, very good things in Tampa with almost the same restrictions in Cleveland in terms of the budget and cap room and how much money they're willing to spend. But this is a consistently good baseball team. And so I don't understand how they cannot get fans of their games.
Would you say that Kevin Cash is the most successful branch of the Terry Francona managing tree?
Certainly not Mickey Callaway.
It's not. No, that's exactly what I was thinking
trying
of.
to think who else is out there.
Because I guess you also have to include Boston. But did any managers after Francona Because
Cora doesn't really count.
No,
he was just a player.
Yeah,
Francona.
Yeah,
that's a good question. Really good question.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, Kevin Cash would be the most successful
manager of the year.
Yeah, it's stunning though. It really is. And Texas is a team that was just as good as Tampa all season long in terms of being hot and one of the better teams. And then they had a little lull.
Yep,
got back into it. They didn't get the division on the last day of the season, but that's a team I still wouldn't want to mess with.
No, right now that'll be a good team to match up with, and they will match up with Baltimore, I believe, in this next round.
Saturday
which
at 1:00.
That'll be a good one. And then the other team that'll be moving on was the Minnesota Twins, who finally, for the first time since 2002, won a playoff series. Do you know who they beat in that playoff series? They made a move that it ends a movie.
Oh, the A's.
Yeah, the Moneyball A's. Yeah, that was a good. That was. I vividly remember seeing that image of the last out, the catch, and being like, "Oh wow, Minnesota. They never win a playoff series nowadays, but now they do." The fans showed up for those games.
Yeah.
They beat the Blue Jays in that first game where Royce Lewis had a heck of a performance, and then game two was, speaking of Moneyball, over analyticizing. Because Toronto's guy had 47 pitches thrown through the first.
Barrios, who is also a former Twin.
Jose Barrios, former Twin, and the first 4 innings, I think, and then three, and then they had the Toronto bullpen work out the rest of the way. But and I know what someone said that he struggles through innings 4 through 6, but why are you moving on from him if he's dominating that early in the game?
And you're paying him the money you're paying him, right?
That's what I'm wondering.
You pay these guys for moments like this, and so I think it was overanalyzing. At the same time, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I watched this game start to finish. I wasn't. I was fall practice yesterday, so I didn't get to watch it. But were the outs that he was getting hard hit? Were they deep out? That's always something to look at too. But at the same time, there's 2 ways to manage in the playoffs. There's that way of, all right, we're down 1-0. we're going to throw our best, right? You look at it, you're going to set up your number one guy to go game 2, right? You're either trying to win the series or you're trying to prevent it and push to game 3.
Right.
There's the other one of I'm going all out to win game 1, like the Milwaukee Brewers did, and it bites you because they blew through their entire bullpen in game 1, and then yesterday they just did not have enough. Guys didn't have their stuff because you looked at some of the relievers, Mitch. Those are guys, one-inning guys, that 20 pitches sometimes I'd say is probably the mark. They had guys going into the high 30s that are not used to it. Then to try to bring them back with no rest. And it was just the Brewers did everything they could to try to win that game in game 1. And when it didn't happen, I don't want to say smart enough, but I was aware because I watched that entire game to say, all right, I'm going to go bet the Diamondbacks today because they're throwing Zach Gallen, who had a Cy Young type season, and the Brewers don't have a fresh bullpen.
Right. Who pitched game 1 for Arizona? Because he was notorious for...
He was, it's a French name. I will pull it up here now.
He was notorious for not being able to eat up a lot of innings this year.
He only went 2 2/3.
I think Arizona got pretty lucky with the way their bullpen performed. And then to have those back-to-back home runs on back-to-back pitches to get yourself back into the game certainly helped.
Fod.
Sure.
Fought. I think it's fought because people say it sounds like fart, but you're saying it in some accent.
Yeah.
Fought.
Yes.
His name. Yeah, he went 2 2/3, 7 hits, 3 earned runs. And his ERA before the game was atrocious. I think I saw something that actually stated he was going to have the highest ERA for a qualified starter to ever start game 1 of a playoff game.
That's insane.
Like
I mean,
over 5.
Arizona is probably the surprise team right now of the playoffs, even with the likes of Minnesota and Texas in there.
I would say it's Arizona, Minnesota, right? What did we hear all year with us being in the Central Division? Oh, they get a team in, but it's okay. They're not going to win a series.
Right.
We heard it last year.
Right.
They're not going to win that first round series with the Guardians.
Well,
the Twins aren't going to.
Well, they got the third best team in the East, so it's not like they beat a juggernaut. Toronto's good. Don't get me wrong, but they're not
good, but they're not what people I think try to make them out to be.
Yes.
And I think they had a lot of poor performances all around this year from certain players.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the moment of that game yesterday, which I did seeing
is the pickoff
of Vlad at second base. And the Twins kind of are playing with a little bit of energy and loose and whatnot.
They're doing what the Indians did in 2016.
Exactly. And I think playoff bit. What did I tell you last year? Just get in.
Yeah.
Just get in.
Yep.
Are the Braves the best team in baseball? Probably. Are the Dodgers right there as the second best team? Probably.
Yeah.
Are they the teams to beat? Yeah, I think they are. Now, but get in. Anything can happen.
Well, granted, one team that got in and we knew anything wasn't going to happen was Miami because they lost to Philadelphia pretty handily. And Philly, I think, is the one playing with house money for the second straight year. Again, correct. Atlanta's not going to... They knew they're going to have a series potentially on their hands. They played those simulated games in the week leading up to it because they have so much time off that they kind of got blindsided last year. They're going to try and not have the same thing happen to them again. I think the Dodgers beat the Diamondbacks in this one, unless the Diamondbacks really come to play like the Padres did last year.
Yeah.
But the NLC, the National League right now is so strong compared to the American League, and like I won't be surprised if it's gonna be either Dodgers, Braves. I'm taking either Dodgers, Braves, or Phillies for my World Series champion, not just World Series rep.
I agree. I think the National League's stronger though, but I also do want to say I think we got to give the Orioles their flowers.
We do.
I think that's a team that nobody knows because they're so young.
Yeah.
Right? They are a team that overtook the Rays that were the hottest team in baseball pretty much for a majority of the year until the Braves caught fire. I'm really intrigued to see what Baltimore does because they are young, virtually no playoff experience in that roster, and they won 101 games. They had the second most wins in baseball this year behind the Braves of 104.
Yeah.
And that's going to be an interesting matchup. Baltimore and Texas, but I also think besides Atlanta being caught off guard last year by Philly was just a hot team, right? That was my whole get in, anything can happen. I didn't expect them to beat the Cardinals. They did. Didn't expect them to beat the Braves. They did. I did not expect them to go to the World Series and give the Astros a run for their money for a few games, and they did. I just hope it's not the Astros, Mitch. I just want to say, I don't like Minnesota, but goodness, am I going to be a Minnesota Twins fan for this next series?
By default, sure. I mean, it's funny. First of all, the whole thing is Carlos Correa against the Astros. That's the big old headline that's coming into this series. And again, I'm still alive for my prediction that the ALCS is going to run through Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So
I hope it doesn't though, just because I don't want to see the Astros get there. But
I know, and to be fair, if Houston gets there, I don't think Texas has much of a chance. But that's what the Astros have against these other teams that are remaining in the AL, is that they have the playoff experience. Now, granted, it's not the full power that they had in those World Series runs. Springer was in Toronto, and Correa's in Minnesota, and somebody else, Gurriel's somewhere else.
Garrett Cole's not there anymore.
Garrett Cole's not there. Zach Greinke's not there. So, I mean, it's not like peak Astros, but this is a team that has the potential to make its, 7th consecutive championship series?
Yes. And
say what you want about the Astros. That's a heck of a run. That's like Braves-esque in the 90s.
As much as I hate them, and I'm always going to hold the whole cheating scandal over them, what they did this year is actually, you have to give them credit. You have to, because look how many injuries they dealt with, right? Jose Altuve gets hurt in spring training.
Yep.
He's out for a while. Like, I don't know about that. Yordan Alvarez out for a while. I mean, my goodness, that guy had one heck of a postseason last year. He put the team on his back sometimes. But you had other guys stepping up, and then you're getting to a point where you're frustrated because you're like, how many guys can they have? They just throw in, they just perform right away. And I hate them. I hate Houston.
I know.
hate the Astros. But I am going to be fair. You have to give Dusty Baker and the Houston Astros credit for this year, because they won the division the last day of the season, and they do have probably the best experience of any team left in the playoffs. And it's scary because experience does play a factor. That's why I think somebody like Arizona, they're playing with house money right now. They have the rookie of the year in Corbin Carroll. I would assume he's the rookie of the year.
Right.
We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I would think so.
But they're young too. And so for these guys to get experience now, kind of like what we thought with Guardians last year, right? Oh, these guys are going to come back. They're ready for it this year. Injuries derailed them. Guys did not have seasons you expected them to have in terms of building off last year. I think the Diamondbacks are the team that's playing with house money here, and the Orioles, right, with how young they are too. It's interesting to see if the Orioles go out, get swept.
Well,
probably not, but
the Orioles, I think, have a little bit of pressure on them to follow through on this amazing regular season. I mean, 5 years ago they won 47 games, and to make a nearly 60-game advancement is incredible.
And last year they were close too at times. Remember last year they kind of got hot, and it was like, whoa, could they make it?
And people were
So for anybody out there, fans of a franchise, and this is not a shot at Cleveland, please preface that you guys aren't rebuilt in 4 years, then your team is just a joke.
I mean,
at the New York Yankees.
One season, man. One season, and they're gonna buy their way back into it. Whatever. Okay.
Yeah, that Carlos Rodon contract looks great.
It could look better. It could look a lot better now.
Could it look worse?
Thanks for joining us here on the Big Time Sports Podcast show. You find all our socials everywhere. BigTimeSportsOhio.com. We've been drinking these drinks, by the way. These Ghost energy drinks. Not a sponsor. This is the sour pink lemonade one, and it is sour. You got one of these for me today. I should mention I already had a Rockstar before I came. A recovery Rockstar, so it doesn't really count. But yeah, I mean, it's good. I mean, I don't really gravitate towards the Ghost because even though they have zero sugar, they look like they have 80 grams of sugar in them. They should for some reason.
Too, yeah.
They're colorful. But yeah, thank you for that. I mean, they're good. Yeah, but enough about what we're drinking. What is our fact of the day?
So I told you it's more of a question.
Yes.
And this ties into playoff baseball. You mentioned the Twins and their 18-game playoff losing streak.
Yes.
Right? And so 18 games, not just like series or anything. They did not win a game.
Their last one was in 2004, Game 1 of the ALDS against the Yankees. Yeah.
There is now a team in American professional sports. I'll say big three. I will eliminate hockey right away.
Oh.
That is now the leading longest playoff game win drought. At 14 is where they stand. Can you name that team?
Gosh, I feel like it has to be. I don't think it's basketball or baseball because that feels like you have a number of games. Well,
it is. It's one of those two.
It's one of those two. Okay.
Yeah. So NFL has just been next.
I can't because there have been teams that I would expect to be on that list that have had they've had playoff wins before. Not saying playoff series wins, but playoff wins. Like I can't say the Sacramento Kings. Mm-hmm. I can't say the Minnesota Timberwolves. I know that yesterday they said Toronto has now lost 7 consecutive playoff series. I don't know.
They had a pretty strong run. This team did for a good part of the early 2000s.
Oh, okay. Well, In that case, I'm trying to think of all the teams that are in baseball that had a successful run in the early O's.
You know what? I'll help you out. It's not even baseball either.
So it's basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're an NBA team. Basketball. Gosh, what teams were good in the early 2000s? Is it the Nets?
Nope.
Is it the? I'm trying to think of the East teams because like a lot of the West ran through the Lakers and the Spurs during that time. Is it the Detroit Pistons?
It is.
It is the Detroit
Pistons. They have lost 14 consecutive playoff games.
No, that makes sense. After the Cavs started dismantling them in the late 2000s, I don't think they haven't had much playoff success.
I also just think that people forget that when LeBron came back, we beat Detroit. I forget all the time. Yeah. We beat Detroit in the first round of the playoffs.
The first year he came back?
Yeah.
Okay, because that next series was Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the year Atlanta went 60-some games and then crapped the bed in the playoffs?
I believe so.
Okay, and then I know the conference finals that year. No. I'm sorry. That might have been Chicago because that was the Derrick Rose.
Yeah. Yep. It was Chicago.
By the way, again, everyone always remembers the Derrick Rose clip because that was the last time we ever saw him. Literally, next game, LeBron made a buzzer beater.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
and Derrick Rose didn't even call bank. Let's be honest.
He did not.
Didn't call bank.
He did not call bank.
But yeah, and I think you struggled so much because it's Detroit and it's an irrelevant city.
I'm not kidding. I was in Fans the other day at the mall, and I was literally looking at a 90s style Detroit Pistons snapback. Like, oh, this looks really nice, but I didn't buy it because Detroit kind of have some. I already have a Tigers hat in my car.
I'm going to have to get one here too.
That doesn't.
Dylan Dingler gets called up.
That doesn't. It's not the D. It's the Tiger that they have. I can get away with that. But if it says Detroit anywhere on that cap, I'm in trouble. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening or watching the Big Time Sports Podcast Show.